All right, so the first thing we're going to touch on today, obviously, it was a big talking point. There was a lot to unpack from it the last week when it did get announced, was the NBA's collective bargaining agreement finally coming to an agreement, which will start as of next season. There was some big takeaways and key talking points from that agreement itself. And yeah, well, do you want to start with the first one?
Okay, so with the union deal, a couple things have kind of changed in the league, I guess. There's a minimum amount of games that you kind of have to play for these postseason awards. So I think, what is it, 60 or 65, something like that?
65 now, yeah.
So I think this is a good thing for the league because we have so many guys like, for example, this year, KD, Ja Morant, LeBron. They're obviously all NBA material and they deserve to be in the team, but they haven't really played that many games compared to some other dudes who are Iron Men around the league. So I think that's a real skill that you kind of need to have. Not sit out games. You have to be playing to be in the running for these awards. So that's always a good thing. A couple other things. There's going to be an in-season tournament, which I guess contributes to the playoffs, I guess, because you get that extra game. So it's kind of like a college type thing where they have the conference championships. Personally, I don't love it. I think it's for revenue mostly, but at the same time, people seem to love the play-in, so I could see this going both ways and think there's a bonus for contract incentives in that tournament, which are questionable. These players make a lot of money already, so I'm not too sure about that. But at the end of the day, if it is a two-way guy and it's their chance to kind of get that bag, I'm not going to hate on it. But yeah, that's kind of the main two things that I took away from the CBA deal. What did you take out of it?
A couple other things, I guess. They're not going to end the one and done era of college basketball, so they're not lowering the draft age, which was a big question mark as to whether they would do that or not, and obviously they decided not to go ahead, which I think is good because it doesn't dilute the talent pool, because I feel like if you have too many high schoolers coming into the NBA, then you kind of don't have ready-made guys coming in. And I know there's some high schoolers that are ready to go and could have an impact in the NBA straight away, but there's other players that, you know, probably need that time in college to develop, and I think it's a good move by the NBA to hold off on that one. The capping spending of high payroll teams such as the Warriors and the Clippers, obviously with their luxury tax spending, they're not able to add additional talent onto their roster using the mid-level exception, so that will be something that they're going to implement, meaning that guys like Deontay DiVincenzo, who signed to the Warriors this year, Joe Ingles, who signed for the Bucks, Celtics signing Danilo Gallinari, even though he's been unsigned this year, and also the Clippers signing John Wall, those kind of signings wouldn't be able to take place based off this new cap that they've implemented, which is sort of trying to help the lower and middle spending teams across the league have a better chance of adding more talent in free agency and being able to compete. And probably the last big takeaway was, I guess, the upper limit of contract extensions are changing. So, for example, instead of being able to increase the upper limit to 120%, it's going up to 140%. So instead of Jaylen Brown wanting to sign a 4-year max deal of 165 million, he can push that up to 189 million, meaning that he's got more room to play with, and in that case is more likely to stay with his current team as opposed to trying to test out the waters in free agency. And the last big takeaway, which it's not as big as the other ones, but obviously you've got the two-way contract slot to rosters. There's going to be the ability to carry 3 players on two-way deals now, and obviously we've seen the success with guys like Max Strus, Duncan Robinson in the past, Austin Reeves, Caruso, Anthony Lamb with the Warriors, and even guys like Jose Alvarado, Lou Dort. And as of recent times, you've seen it now, they've signed him to a permanent deal, but Kenneth Lofton Jr., having that breakout game at the end of the season, now they've signed him to that 4-year deal. So obviously it shows that there is, I guess, a success story to be found in every single franchise using these two-way contracts. So I think it's the right thing for the NBA to do, and I agree with a lot of the things that they did here, but at the same time, the in-season tournament's probably the biggest question mark out of all the changes to the collective bargaining agreement, which will take place next season.